Hello all, it's James Johnson, aka Sulfur Blade, and I am back here with the slightly more informative video that I said I was going to make in my previous short montage. In this video, we're basically going to look back at three highlights from the primary, the Democratic primary, where we can see some of the candidates trading jabs, and we can get the sense of where the Democrats are. So first off, we're going to start off with Kamala Harris, currently Joe Biden's running mate, vice president, who's probably going to end up, if Joe Biden were to win, Kamala Harris would be president within like a year, because Joe Biden would be found unfit to lead in short order, and Kamala Harris would have literally used Joe Biden to get elected as president. But let's see who is Kamala Harris by watching the exchange between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
I believe you are a racist, and I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing.
Look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
But Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No,
do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well, there was a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision.
So that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all people.
She was oppressed. Oh my gosh. I was oppressed. Anyway, I find it very interesting that Biden would have picked her to be his running mate. Anyway, let's learn a little bit more about Kamala Harris, the potential next president of the United States, seeing as we all know Joe Biden is suffering from dementia and will not last through the term. Kamala Harris will, at some point, if Joe Biden were to be elected, become the next president. So let's find out more about Kamala Harris. How about this one?
Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to...
So I just want to chime in before we go too much further. Tulsi Gabbard here is an actual moderate Democrat. Tulsi Gabbard is a poster child of what the Democratic Party used to be, when it was actually a respectable party that people could rally behind and vote for. She is the only candidate that was put on the stage this year that any Republicans would have even considered voting for instead of Trump. And I don't just mean Republicans, I mean moderates as a whole. So a lot of people who right now consider themselves Republicans are only Republicans because there's no other option. We're moderates deep down, but there is no moderate representation on the left side of the aisle. However, Tulsi Gabbard would have filled that bill. Tulsi Gabbard would have really been a very difficult candidate for Trump to go up against, because a lot of us would have had to have said, she's actually sane. She's actually reasonable. She's not crazy far left. She's presidential. She has a better quote unquote presidential way about her than Trump, who's rather rude and crude. I think Tulsi Gabbard could have beaten Trump, but sadly, she told the truth about her party, and well, her party wasn't going to have any of that. So let's continue.
The broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about reentering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to bring a...
And which is why she helped champion paper straws in California. What does that have to do with being Attorney General anyway? I don't know, but you're all lucky in California drinking through your paper straws. Thank Kamala Harris for that.
Congresswoman Gabbard, back in. Your response,
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Senator Harris.
My entire career, I have been personally opposed to the death penalty, and that has never changed. And I dare anybody who is in a position to make that decision, to face the people I have faced, to say, I will not seek the death penalty. That is my background. That is my work. I am proud of it. I think you can judge people by when they are under fire, and it's not about some fancy opinion on a stage, but when they're in the position to actually make a decision, what do they do? When I was in the position of having to decide whether or not to seek a death penalty on cases I prosecuted, I made a very difficult decision that was not popular to not seek the death penalty. History shows that, and I am proud of those decisions.
Yeah, she's proud of those decisions. How about a little bit more?
Of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party. What is the rot you see in the Democratic Party?
That our Democratic Party, unfortunately, is not the party that is of, by, and for the people. It is a party that has been and continues to be influenced by the foreign policy establishment in Washington, represented by Hillary Clinton and others' foreign policy.
So there's a lot of truth to that. Democrats were for a long time considered the party of the people, right? So the Democrats were looking out for the little guy. The Democrats had the normal Joes back. That was the Democratic reputation as I was growing up, right? The Democrats were for the little guy, and Republicans were for big business. Well, we've come completely 180 now in the year 2020, where the Democrats are the party of big business and could give a shit about the little guy, and the Republicans are the party that gives a shit about the little guy, right? It's a complete 180. And when Tulsi Gabbard sits here and talks and says that she wants to take the Democratic Party back to its roots, where it came from, it only makes sense. It's a good thing, but yeah.
By the military-industrial complex and other greedy corporate interests. I'm running for president to be the Democratic nominee that rebuilds our Democratic Party, takes it out of their hands, and truly puts it in the hands of the people of this country, a party that actually hears the voices of Americans who are struggling all across this country, and puts it in the hands of veterans and fellow Americans who are calling for an end to this ongoing Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy doctrine of regime change wars, overthrowing dictators in other countries, needlessly sending my brothers and sisters in uniform into harm's way to fight in wars that actually undermine our national security and have cost us thousands of American lives. These are wars that have cost us as American taxpayers trillions of dollars since 9/11 alone, dollars that have come out of our pockets, out of our hospitals, out of our schools, out of our infrastructure needs. As president, I will end this foreign policy, end these regime change wars, work to end this new Cold War and arms race, and instead invest our hard-earned taxpayer dollars actually into serving the needs of the American people.
Thank you,
right here at home.
Senator Harris, any response?
Oh, sure. I think that it's unfortunate that we have someone on the stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, who during the Obama administration spent 4 years full-time on Fox News criticizing President Obama.
That's
who
ridiculous,
has spent full-time,
That's
who has
ridiculous.
spent full-time criticizing people on this stage as affiliated with the Democratic Party. When Donald Trump was elected, not even sworn in, buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald Trump in the Trump Tower, fails to call a war criminal by what he is as a war criminal, and then spends full time during the course of this campaign, again, criticizing the Democratic Party. What we need on the stage in November.
So what they needed on the stage was Tulsi Gabbard. So that was a very colorful picture that Kamala has just painted of Tulsi. Basically, she basically said Tulsi Gabbard's a Republican, right? And that Tulsi Gabbard goes on Fox News and kisses Trump's butt and blah, 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 blah. And that's just not really true. If you've ever seen any of the Tulsi Gabbard interviews on Fox News, she still is, by and large, comes at it from a very Democrat point of view, though she does have a lot of angst towards her own party for their choices. But that's, a politician should be that way, right? A politician should not just be in lockstep with its party. A good politician knows when to not be in lockstep with its party, to try to push its party in a better direction or a direction it should be. And any kissing butt of the president she may have done, I'm sure was for the best of her constituency, which is the whole purpose of being a congressman in the first place, is to try to get stuff done for the people that you represent, which in this case is Hawaii.
Is someone who has the ability to win. And by that, we need someone on that stage who has the ability to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, and someone who has the ability to rebuild the Obama coalition and bring the party and the nation together, I believe I am that candidate.
Thank you, Senator. Congresswoman Gabbard, I'll give you a
Sorry.
What Senator Harris is doing is unfortunately continuing to traffic in lies and smears and innuendos because she cannot challenge the substance of the argument that I'm making, the leadership and the change that I'm seeking to bring in our foreign policy, which only makes me guess that she will, as president, continue the status quo, continue the Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy of regime change wars, which is deeply destructive. This is personal to me because I served in Iraq. I left my seat in the state legislature in Hawaii, volunteered to deploy to Iraq, where I served in a medical unit where every single day I saw the terribly high human cost of war. I take very seriously the responsibility that the president has to serve as commander-in-chief, to lead our armed forces, and to make sure always, no, I'm not going to put party interests first. I will put the interests of the American people above all else.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I want to briefly give Senator Harris a final second to respond.
I believe that what our nation needs right now is a nominee who can speak to all people. I spent my entire career standing mostly in a courtroom speaking 5 words, Kamala Harris for the people. And it was about all the people, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of where they live geographically, regardless of the party with which they're registered to vote or the language their grandmother speaks. We need someone on this debate stage in November who has the ability to unify the country and to win the election.
That would have
And
been
I believe
Tulsi
again
Gabbard.
I am that candidate.
Easily.
Thank you for watching this video from...
All right, so there we have it. We've gone back in time. We rewound. We saw Tulsi Gabbard pretty much tear up Kamala Harris, or actually, well, yeah, she tore Kamala Harris up. In fact, Kamala Harris shortly afterwards dropped out of the presidential election. She was one of the very first people to drop out. Tulsi Gabbard actually never dropped out. The mainstream media forced her out. So when they started to do the debates, when people would drop out, like Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropped out, about that time, Tulsi Gabbard never dropped out. And then they said the only woman left in the race was Pocahontas. What's her name? The woman who lied about being American Indian. Anyway, she was the only woman left in the race according to mainstream media, but Tulsi Gabbard was still in the race, but they just never let her get up on the stage and take part in any of the debates. And then when Pocahontas dropped out, all you had left was Bernie and Joe, according to mainstream media, but Tulsi Gabbard was still officially running for president as the Democratic nominee. But according to the mainstream media, she wasn't running for president. They never brought her up, which is really funny. It's almost like the whole Hunter Biden email stuff, where mainstream media won't go near the story. They won't touch it with a 10-foot pole, even though it's true. It's just like, we know nothing, we see nothing. That's kind of what they did to Tulsi Gabbard during the presidential primaries, but nobody cared. But yeah, I think it's interesting to go back and watch and see where they were earlier in the election cycle, especially Kamala Harris, who got eviscerated and knocked out early, and now she is quote-unquote the vice president who will likely be president if Joe Biden is elected. So if you are voting for Joe Biden, you are really voting for Kamala Harris, probably the weakest candidate that was on the stage of the primaries. So, wow. How have we gotten here? Anyway, just a nice little flash in the past. Anyway, I'm James Johnson, aka Sulfur Blade. This is my content. Hopefully you're enjoying it. If so, please leave a like and subscribe. And until the next time, all, peace.